Hello. Welcome to Lost Lagosians, a podcast covering topics about Africans and Nigerians in diaspora, as well as trending topics and challenges of living in diaspora. My name is Brodda Mike. I am your host. In the landscape of all the podcasts, a lot of podcasts does not specifically address the issues and the concerns around Lagosians in diaspora. The aim and objective of this podcast is to explore the lives and the livelihoods of Lagosians living in diaspora, as well as the challenges and the struggles that they encounter every day in diaspora. This episode, I'll be introducing myself and talking to you about my experience of coming to America. I'm based in America. I've been here for about 20 years now as of the time of this recording. And coming to America for me has been a fantasy that I've had since way back in the 90s and the hip-hop revolution era in Lagos. Particularly, I was in high school and I've always been seeing a lot of American movies, and I just figured someday I would like to be in America. So right out of high school, I applied for colleges in America. Back in the day, there was no internet. The only way to apply was to write letters to the schools and wait. So at one point, the Nigerian Postal Service and iPost, they already know who I am, because every time I'm always waiting out there for the posts. And then there are brochures. So there was USIS, United States Information Service Center. This is out in Marina on Lagos Island. And they had a session there every Wednesday where you go in and they will show you this beautiful video about America and what it means to study in America. And then you had to pay about, back then it was like 10,000 Naira. You pay 10,000 Naira so you can become a student of USIS, which gave you the opportunity to be able to go in every Wednesday. And they will help you take the SAT. They will help you with studying and prepping for TOEFL as well. And they have a library there that you can use, and also a lot of videos, VHS back in the day, videos to watch about schools in America. So I went there, and it was just so mind blowing and so overwhelmed. Like, wow, this is just like the country that you want to be at, because it's so amazing. The education is great. I get to interact with a lot of bright minds. So went through USIS, but the issue then for me was it was a lot of money. So they wanted us to pay just to be a student of USIS, and I was ready, back in high school, getting ready to take JAMB. For those of you who don't know, JAMB is the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board. All university students in Nigeria have to take JAMB, and with JAMB, it's once a year. It's just one day in a year. That's the university JAMB. There's another one for the Polytechnic, like another community college / higher education technical college. So that's the Poly JAMB, but people get looked down on. So it was just the JAMB, which is the Uni JAMB. So I was studying and prepping for the Uni JAMB while I was trying to again come to America, and then they're telling me that I had to pay for USIS. My parents were like, hell no, we're not going to pay for that. So instead of paying for the USIS and being an enrolled student, I think back then it's like a 3-month or 6-month program whereby you pay. Could have been monthly too, I don't know the exact details on that. You pay, and then you have access to the library. They help you study, and even on the interview they prep you for the embassy interview as well. And I'm sure that the students that were part of USIS, those students actually get kind of like a pass, I'm suspecting. Again, I don't know for sure, but rumor had it back then that if you wanted to get your visa, almost a guarantee you have to go through USIS. But as one who couldn't afford the payment for USIS, instead, I was going to USIS every Wednesday for the matriculation. So they have matriculation once a week for new students, just to, show them around what it feels like to go to school in America. So me, I just, instead of going and paying, I just started going to USIS every Wednesday. So until they got to know who I was, and they're like, oh, you've been coming here now every Wednesday and you've never really signed up or made any payments. So after going through USIS, I got a lot of brochures. USIS gives us brochures and souvenirs, and in those souvenirs you have schools that you can apply to, and then you can reach out to them. Again, I'm talking 98, 99. Email was just coming out at the time, and they have addresses too, whereby I can just write them a letter. So got my admission letter to different schools. You had to pay application fee. A lot of schools back then didn't require application fee, so most of the ones that I applied to didn't even have application fee. So because if there was application fee, I wouldn't be able to have paid that. But I did apply to a couple of schools, got my I-20 from a school in Michigan. Super excited. Finally, after going through all the hassle of writing so many schools, I was able to land one that gave me an I-20. Took the I-20 to the embassy. Back then, there were no dates for students in August. Usually, I think they have dates like in June, July. But when school got closed around August, September, the embassy just pretty much opened the gates and said every Wednesday is Students' Day. So every Wednesday, you go to the embassy, line up as a student. There were no restrictions. Again, I'm talking the year 2000, 2001. So went into the embassy, just line up. There was no fingerprinting, nothing. Just go to the embassy and queue up. The first time I went to the embassy, it was a very, very long day. I got there about 6 a.m. because you have to be there early. Sometimes on Friday, they would open the doors for students too. They didn't have a lot of people for the visiting visa or the tourist visas. Sometimes they're just, okay, we'll take students in. So it's not uncommon for people to have gone to the embassy a few times in a week, just hoping for the opportunity to be open for students, especially in the month of August. Went there, got there early, 6 a.m., was there pretty much all day. No time yet, you just wait, use the bathroom if you need to, and just keep waiting. So, because there were no times or appointments then. Got to my turn, got up, finally my name was called. And then the embassy was, the consular officer was pretty much like, why are you going to school in the USA? I told him, well, because I want to further my education. Okay. And then he kept on telling me about how cold Michigan was. And that Michigan is so cold that he doesn't know why I'm going to Michigan. So in my mind, I'm kind of like, well, I'm sure there are black people in Michigan. So I'm not the first one to go to Michigan. And I don't see why he has a problem with me going to Michigan. Then he proceeded to ask me about my studies and what I'm going to study and why. Then he came back and I was like, Michigan is really, really cold. That is, sorry, I can't get a visa. And I was denied. So for me, I was kind of like bummed. A lot of people were actually rooting for me because this guy is like a serial denier. Like, he basically denies people a lot. And he's notorious for that because, people go to embassy so many times. They know who are the good guys and the bad guys. So didn't get the visa. I went home, was bawling my eyes out. My parents were like, what's wrong with you? Like, you went to the embassy, you wasted all this money, like, because they had to give me the visa fees. You wasted all the money we could have used to buy food or do other important things. So I felt kind of let down because I let my friends down because, they kind of trusted in me and I wasted their money. So again, went back again the second time to the embassy. Now, when you go to the embassy, sometimes they'll stamp your passport. Sometimes they don't stamp your passport. Back then, if they didn't stamp your passport, you got away, like, you're lucky. Because the database wasn't that good as it is now. So if they didn't stamp your passport, you're like, oh my God, my passport is not stamped. At least they didn't stamp my passport. So next time I go, they will know my passport has not been stamped. Long story short, I went back again the second time. Again, back in this, 2000, late 90s, early 2000, you could go as many times as you want to, as many times you can afford to pay the visa fee. So went back again. When I went the second time, I was told my documents were not complete. Again, you need to have a sponsor. So at one time, I had one of my uncles who was sponsoring me, kind of, by just giving me his bank statements to use. But the second school I applied to had a higher tuition than the first one I had gone to. So I just didn't make the cutoff for the amount required. So I was refused again. But the second refusal, I was lucky because my passport was not stamped. So I was like, wow, thank God, at least my passport, they only stamped it the first time, not the second time. So a couple of months again, I went, even though back then they started kind of figuring out a lot of people were coming back again. And they're like, well, if they refuse, you have to wait for like 60 days or 90 days. I don't remember exactly. But the idea is to try to reduce those going back. So, but I was just like, you know what, no matter, I'm going to go. So I went back before that time had expired. Got to the embassy again. Lots of students just trying to get out of the country. Again, this is around 2001. Go to the embassy, somehow managed to get in. You have all these abokis. For those who don't know, abokis are the military guards, like from the northern Nigerians. They're usually armed, and they don't play with anybody. So you have to, behave yourself, or they will throw you out of the embassy. So they didn't really check. They just say, okay, go, as long as you have an I-20 that is valid. Again, no appointments, no dates, just show up. So went to the embassy the third time, got there. I again waited all day. If you leave, you can't get back in. There's the bathroom, just use the bathroom and just starve, whatever. So went to the embassy the third time, got there. As God will have it, or as luck will have it, as fate will have it, the school I was going to was a Catholic school this third time, and the interviewer was a Catholic lady as well. So I didn't know that, but I noticed she had a rosary on. So I was like, oh my God, this is so nice. She has a rosary on. I'm going to Catholic school. Okay, hopefully, I walked up to her and she's like, wow, you're going to this school. This school is in my hometown. Like, it's in my hometown, my city. As a matter of fact, my sister goes to that school. It's a good school. I was like, yeah, thank God though. So basically the stars kind of aligned for me that day, and the lady obviously was so happy that somebody's going to a school in her hometown that is a good school, just Catholic. And that's how I ended up, getting my visa. It was so easy and seamless. It took about 2 minutes. The second time I had gone, I was fighting and arguing with the guy for like 30 minutes. But this one was just about 2 minutes long. So I was like, wow, thank God. So got the visa. And after all of that, we have to get the tickets fees. We have to pay for tickets and travel, blah, blah, blah. Then also tuition, which at the time, you don't really pay all the tuition until you get to the school. When you get to the school, you have to find a way to, work or get a job on the side, so they can try and hopefully can get a job on campus, like at the library or at the students' campus cafeteria or something like that. So for me, that was just my plan. I'm going to get a campus. I had a little bit of money, but it wasn't like enough. So that's how I was able to come to America. And I think there's a lot of people that have similar experiences, particularly those that came in on student visas. And I'm hoping this podcast you can relate to that, because I'm interviewing guests who were once students or were student visas, and they know the challenges of being a student in diaspora, especially if you're a Lagosian and a Nigerian, what that means exactly. That's how I got to the States. I came here, and I think the first semester was pretty challenging, and just the cultural shock of people not understanding, like, okay, this guy's from Nigeria, he has a very, very heavy accent, he sounds funny, and we can't understand what he's doing, but he's very smart because he passes all his tests and he does well on the exams. Somehow the professors and lecturers figured it out, but the students and colleagues in class, a lot of them didn't even have any idea, because they've just finished high school, and college was basically which school are they going to choose. They didn't have to go through JAMB or they didn't have to take any WAEC or GCE or anything like that. For those of you who don't know, WAEC is the West African Examination Council, and GCE is the General Certificate Examination, I believe. And in Nigeria, there's just the WAEC exam back then. I think later on they came out with NECO, the National Examination Council, I think it's called. But those exams are like offered once a year. So it's not something you can just schedule and then you go in and then you just go and do, like every other Wednesday. So once a year, you study for it the whole year. And for JAM, there's just one exam a year. So if you can't make it, you have to come back the following year. Funny stories. When I came to the US, I finally was told that I passed JAM. So I'd previously taken JAM 4 times. So my first semester here in the US, after I got my visa, I haven't gone through the embassy. I was told that, oh, by the way, you finally got the cutoff for your JAM. So it wasn't that I wasn't passing, but for the program I wanted to do, there's a certain cutoff for University of Lagos, which if you didn't have that cutoff, there's no way you are going to get, unless you know someone and you're well connected. So I guess for me, this is just a medium to kind of give hope for those who are kind of like going through different things, or those in Nigeria and those Lagosians out there that are struggling Sometimes you might try the first time, sometimes second time, sometimes you might have to take 3 times to be able to get it. So just keep on keeping on. We'll cover a lot of topics and diaspora related topics. We'll have Lagosians come on board and share their experiences. We'll be talking about trending topics and the challenges, particularly of living in diaspora, not just as a Lagosian but also as a Nigerian. If you have any questions or comments, or if you would like to be featured in an upcoming episode, you can send an email to lostlagosians@gmail.com. lostlagosians@gmail.com. The Twitter handle for this show is @lostlagosians. @lostlagosians. Thank you for listening. Please share. This is Brodda Mike signing off.